Hello, and welcome to the Coding with AI podcast, where we have conversations with humans who build apps with AI. I'm Marcelo, the host and founder of iCode with AI. If you want to get a hold of me, just email me, Marcelo at icodewith.ai. Now, in today's episode, I'm chatting with Brian Madison. There are many of you out there that already know him. And not only is he a senior engineer manager at Extend, and that's going to be our focus today, is talking about that whole development team. But he's also the creator of the BMAD Method, which is a framework for developing and using AI. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. But today's conversation will be all focused on how vibe coding will affect traditional development teams, which is something that you know is going to happen. And we'll try to dissect what we think may happen. Now, before we get started, you know how this goes. Go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching it there. Click that bell icon to get notified when a new episode is out. And if you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button. If you didn't, send me an email and tell me why. All right, without further ado, let's get Brian in here. Brian, welcome.
Hey, all right, Marcelo. I've been really looking forward to this. Nice to be here with you today, and I'm excited about this conversation. For everybody that doesn't know me, my name is Brian. People do call me BMAD, so it's not only the name of the BMAD method. People do actually call me BMAD.
So it's your nickname too. Okay.
Yeah, so feel free to call me BMAD Marcelo. And just really quick, I guess I'll throw out the socials out there also, since everybody's got to do it. So you can find me on YouTube is the easiest way to find me. Just BMAD code. Go to the About page. All my other links are there. You can find the BMAD method, the Discord community, and we'll cover all that stuff later.
And all the links are on the landing page of this podcast as well. So they're there already for people to find out. But let's jump in real quick. Tell us a little bit about your manager, a development manager, senior manager, right? Tell us a little bit about that. What does your team consist of? Roles, the kind of roles that you manage. Who does your team interact with? Like if it's product, marketing, or just give us a little bit background on that, and then we'll talk a little bit about the BMAD method.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that'll set up the conversation really well. So I work at a company called Extend. It's a great startup. And I work on a product team. So I work with a product manager and a team of 8 developers. And we work in an organization with other product teams. We work with, marketing and people that work with solutions directly, working with our clients, but also internally, we work on products that are both consumer facing and also internal tooling. I've been managing the team now for about 3 years, and I've been at Extend for 4 years. I have a long history in software development. I've been a developer for probably over 20 years now. And it's been an amazing time to just see how things have transformed. Over the years in my career, things have shifted. But I will say I've seen nothing like what I've seen, and you'll probably say the same thing, Marcelo, in the last year or two, of just how fast everything has been transitioning. Really interesting segue, I think, into the conversation we're talking about today, even is just how much things have changed. It's been almost a year since I first discovered Cursor. I think it was like November or December of last year, actually, where we started kind of transitioning from just using tools like Copilot, which has been around for 4 or 5 years now,
Right.
and starting to see these new agentic tools kind of coming in and affecting. And so, what I really saw is an opportunity of how to take these tools and actually start using them in the real world. And if you would have asked me a year ago, it would have been a very different conversation than what it is right now. And who knows what this conversation will be a year from now,
It could
right?
be
Like,
all
I
right
think
or
you and
all
I are going to
wrong.
talk about it and give our ideas, but
Exactly.
it's who knows. But anyways, yes. So team of engineers, we do use these tools day to day. What I share with the BMAD method and what you share with your method and what you talk about a lot on this podcast, I see used day to day by engineers, and I do see it transforming organizations. And it really is going to shift, I don't want to say like in a bad way or a good way, but things
It's
are
going to
going to
shift it.
change.
Yeah, it's going to
Change is
shift.
constant.
Exactly.
Um,
Before
but
we get
I
into
do
that,
see a lot of positives. Yeah.
and before we get into that, I want to just real quick,
Sure.
the BMAT method. What is it? Just give us a quick 5 minute. People can go, learn about it
Yeah,
more later.
definitely.
But what
Check it
is
out.
it
And
and how did it come to be?
it's really relevant to what we're talking about too. So maybe before I tell you what the BMAD method is, let me just tell you when I started working with my team about a year ago and we were rolling out these tools, I
Hmm.
saw a real disconnect online between what a lot of people were saying on like YouTube. There's a lot of people out there saying, learn how to use this tool. You have no experience and you can have your $1 million SaaS application on the market tomorrow. And what I was seeing was very impressive. And then what I was seeing in the workplace was something very different, where we try to roll out these tools, and the developers would use the agentic mode of these tools, like Cursor, and would come to the conclusion that, oh, you know, this is not smart enough. I can do it faster. It makes mistakes. And I knew that there had to be something in between there, Marcelo. So, like I said, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. And again, this is about a year ago.
Right.
So the BMAD method was really just me kind of getting obsessed with figuring out what does it take to get the agent in these. I think most of our audience knows here, what I'm talking about with the agentic mode in something like
Right.
Cursor,
Right.
where you're talking to an agent and having it do the work for you. And what does it take to get it to actually deal with complex problems beyond trivial hello world or build a to-do app? How do you get it to stay on the rails and get through completion? And so I would say, like, back in February or March, just over and over again, outside of work, like on my own time, I would try to build these complex applications and see where it started to fail, make some notes, make some tweaks, go back to the beginning. And what started to evolve for me was what is now known as context engineering, where
Right.
it's like coming up with a PRD, feeding context, giving a lot of instruction to the LLM and getting it to go there. To answer your question, though, what is the BMAD method? It kind of evolved out of this experimentation. I started to learn patterns and practices, but what I also saw is an interesting correlation between what I've been doing for 20 plus years in my own career with Agile, breaking things down, planning things, how to have a product manager mindset, and even think about the problem ahead of time. And that's where I saw a lot of traditional vibe coding at the time really fall down, is a lot of lack of planning. So you get so far with the agent and it really starts to become kind of a spaghetti mess.
Right.
And so the BMAD method is a framework. It's a thought framework, but it's also a collection of prompts and personas and agents that take on these different agile AI roles. So there's a product manager, a scrum master, developer agents, and everything in between to guide you through a thought process of how to think about your problem, break it down into a good PRD, further break that down into just the information that the developer agent will need to do one small piece of work, and then implement it. I say all this is relevant to our conversation today because I started to realize that by doing these things, you could actually take on challenging things. So, taking this information back into the workplace and really getting people to try the agent modes, but think about them with this more methodical way of thinking about it. In other words, providing it the context, providing it, small granular things to work on. Um, it was very transformative, and we saw that yes, these agents are actually very viable and can help with these problems. So that's kind of a long roundabout way of
No, no,
what
it,
the
it
BMAD
sets
method is
the
and how
base
it
here.
applies.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And it sets the base for the transition because I think where we're headed, right? We started with vibe coding. The true meaning of vibe coding, right, is just complete freedom, complete creativity, let AI do whatever, don't have a plan,
Yeah.
just start with an idea. But the reality is that doesn't scale, that's not maintainable. And we're seeing a shift now into spec-driven development, which is where your framework comes in, where my framework comes in. We're shifting towards that. So I wanted to ask you from a development perspective, where do you see spec driven development, which the code is no longer the central focus, right? It's the spec that becomes the focus, and everything is around the spec. And when you want to add features, you go back to the spec, and the spec is what generates your code. So, where do you see spec driven development sneaking into the engineering department,
Mhm.
or is it only for non-engineering? I mean, I love your take on that.
Yeah, there's a couple things to unpack there, and I like how you broke down the distinction between like vibe coding and what vibe coding is. I'm 100% there with you right now. Maybe going back a little bit first before even answering that question is that's where I started. When I started this
Right.
experimentation, I was enamored with vibe coding before,
Right.
the famous vibe coding tweet went out. That's what I was trying, right? And it's magical. And then again, you hit
And it
those
still
inevitable
is, right? It's still, if
roadblocks.
you don't care,
And it's a
you
lot
can
of
still
fun,
do
right? If
it.
you're doing a
Yeah.
little one-off thing or if you need a tool, like you don't need a heavy framework or even spec engineering to get something done.
Right.
And it's fun. It can be, just a fun way. Not everything has to be so serious with AI and work, right? It's like as a software developer, you do your day job every day and it's nice to do other types of projects after work. So it doesn't always have to be these serious heavyweight things. But yeah, spec engineering is a new name for it. And it's kind of becoming popular. It's funny because that also has a lot of ties to agile and just agile methodologies in
Right.
general. The way that I've had my teams and I've been trying to even draft stories in Jira, for example, going before AI, was using a spec type of format of acceptance criteria or a BDD language. So in a user story, not only will we put like our general, as a so and so, I do this, so that we also break down the acceptance criteria and use very detailed given when then syntax. Um, been doing this even before AI, so it's very interesting to see now this kind of renaissance of spec engineering being driven by this very same format almost becoming the specification for the code. This was the dream. It's kind of like this all seems new, but like this dream of spec driven engineering has been around for probably 10, 20 years at least. Like I've heard ideas of this, like if we can just write the spec, it will generate the code for us. But now we're so close to it that it's actually happening. It's very exciting with AI. So, yes, the spec is becoming the code. And what I'm seeing happening, we're just on the verge of this, Marcelo, but like I'm seeing it already happening, and I'm seeing a lot of companies embracing this and really going, hard into this. Is understanding this is the future, and as we start to use AI and these tools to also help us generate these specs, because it can also help us. We don't need to manually write all these specs, which is something we could probably get to in a little bit, right? But as we use the AI tools to even generate these specs, they get so detailed. Why not have agents in the cloud start developing what it can and delivering features, freeing up developers to focus on more important things, not just being the code reviewers of these AI agents, but also help thinking about the big problems and helping breaking things down. So then the AI can start to help us with some of the more trivial tasks as we help take it together. That's where I see a lot of the transformation now. I don't think it's there yet, but with GitHub agents and Codex has cloud agents. Everybody's doing cloud agents now, and it's there for a reason because this is what's going to be happening, and we're going to see, I think, a shift. Let me just pause there, Marcelo, because what is your take on it? Because I'm sure you're
There's
seeing
a
the same
lot
type
you
of
said
thing.
there to unpack, which is, and I agree with all of it. But what an interesting aspect that, I mean, to me, spec driven development seems to be the future. And in fact, I'm going to use a keyword here because BJ Marshall says that he put on a drinking game that if we ever mention game changer, insane, or paradigm shift, they have to take a shot. So you have to
Ah,
take 3 shots, BJ, just so you know. Go for it now.
wow,
I
yes, I
just
like that.
mentioned all of them. But I do believe we're in a paradigm shift. Number one, with spec driven development, I do believe that it's the first time. Yes, like you mentioned, we've had specs before. The problem is they went out of scope quickly, and then
Hmm.
people just new features were added to code, and code and documentation never updated. Right? There's
Yes,
documentation debt, but now it's constantly updated because documentation seems to be the focus. Now, at least from a vibe coder perspective, maybe that's where I want your feedback as a manager of developers. I'd love to know if you feel that developers will shift their focus from creating code fully to really managing the specs and then creating code out of that. Um,
I think
yeah.
so. I definitely think so, Marcelo. And it's interesting that you're differentiating between vibe coders and
Oh, yeah.
I guess you're saying coders in an engine. So
In an
when you say
engineering
vibe
team.
coder,
Yep.
Well, what do you mean by vibe coder when you differentiate that?
Yeah. So my take, and I don't want to make it about me. It is all about you in this conversation. But my take on vibe coders is I think they're the future builders, and they're not replacing engineers at all. In fact, engineers will continue because they know best. But vibe coders are going to be your product managers. They're going to be your product marketing managers, your project managers. All of these people are going to need to understand how to write or how to vibe code, so that
I
way
think
they can create their POCs or MVPs, and then transfer that over to engineering to actually push it to production, to make it production ready. But to me, vibe coders are not a thing of like a fad. To me, I think vibe coders will be, maybe that won't be their name. It'll just be whatever they are, product managers, but they will need to know how to vibe code as part of
I
their
get what you
deal.
mean. Yeah, I
Yeah.
just wanted to kind of level set on the term. So what you said there is where I'm at 100%, and I see that is definitely what is coming, and it's what's here right now. So for me, vibe coders, I think it's an exciting time, right? Anybody can kind of pick up these tools now and get something built and get something going. And one thing with the BMAD method and your method also is it's allowing people that have never even worked in software engineering to now pick up these tools and start to create, and it's a magical time. But within the organization, I think it's very exciting also because it is now empowering. I don't like to use the term technical and non-technical people because I think everybody's technical in their own way, but non-coding people, if we want to call them vibe coders, but I'll say other people in the organization are now empowered to help and get us closer to a finished product. So, we can talk about how this allows people in product or marketing or even management to use tools like Lovable or V0 and generate working specs instead of just describing what they want in words. They can now build functioning applications, and I have seen this already transforming within our organizations where now product and even management outside of engineering is able to describe what they need visually and interactively. And I've seen it just speed up the cycles of discussions where it used to be kind of throw something over to the fence for design and maybe wait a month for like Figmas to come back or something.
Right.
Now, like, this is already transformative in that people are able to put something together and have a meaningful discussion with design and engineering and actually look and feel and click on it. It's amazing. So I think that's part of what we're calling also vibe coding, right? But then there's just the ability. I agree with you. I think the future is more product putting together their idea and also putting it in this spec format, maybe working with the engineers. I think there's still a lot of collaboration there and a lot of information to get together, but then this starts
Hmm.
generating the code. So we are, and this is where, maybe some of this is the uncomfortable truths for some people, but I think this is what we are leading to. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's just the roles are going to transform and change
Yeah.
to what people have historically done that. But that's always happened in this career, Marcelo.
Intact.
I
Yeah.
mean, 10 years ago, DevOps was a siloed thing and testing was a siloed thing. And even database people were a siloed thing. And constantly everything is shifting left. I don't know if you're familiar with the term shift left, right? But I see like this is just another transition sort of shifting left where things get easier or more automated. So, people can do what used to be specialized. Now more people can do it. This is just a natural evolution. Um, I still see a place for QA people, for example, QA specialized people or front end specialized people or back end specialized people. But with the emergence of all these technologies and libraries and frameworks and AI, it makes all of that easier where the developer can do more. And so why shouldn't it also be that now product or, other non-technical people can at least get enough together to create these specs to start generating the code? Um, Another interesting thing that you hit on though that really is fascinating to me now is one of the biggest challenges also always in software development is with documentation. And this
Right.
is where I get really excited about specs because people are starting to realize that if we can get documentation closer to the code, it's more likely that developers will keep it up to date, but also the AI is now able to help us keep documentation up to date. So one of the big things with AI is of course providing context to it. If you have a lot of garbage, out of date documentation in different sources, the code is going to do dumb things, right? The more information you can give it, the better work it's going to produce for you. And so this is kind of creating a renaissance. And I'm seeing this across so many companies. So many people are telling me about this, that this is leading to better documentation that they've ever had, because it's kind of forcing the issue, but it's also getting documentation out of disparate places and actually getting it into the code. So Markdown as a format now with code is becoming very popular, just because it's a great way to document it. It's human readable, but it's also easily readable now by these AI systems. So as we talk about, tying all this back though to talking about specs, right? Specs is just text in a format that you can now store with the code, and it gives the code context to be able to implement changes. So
Right, right. And so let's talk a little bit about context, because that's really important, right? And that's the balance that we're all trying to figure out here. And I'd love to understand. That's why I think, let me take a step back for a minute before I say that. I want to, because I know a lot of engineers and developers are afraid of the vibe coding. And it's like we're not going to be needed. I don't believe that's true. I think as I've been vibe coding now for about a
mhm.
year, and the more you know, the more technical you are, the better you're going to be vibe coding. But
A
I
hundred
think a
percent, Marcelo.
developer that vibe codes is going to be 10 times the developer that doesn't vibe code, just because they know what's going on, right? They understand what the AI is doing. I still believe that vibe coders need to be technical, not engineers, but they need to be technical. I don't believe that you can create, yeah, you can create a one-off game in 5 minutes and play it, but I'm talking about something that in an enterprise, I think even your team members will have to become a bit more technical at a higher level. So, like for example, I'm putting together a POC right now uh, for claims and insurance and stuff like that, just to figure it out. I'm learning LangChain, but I'm learning it from a high level. I can't code it by hand, but I
Right.
totally understand all the pieces of LangChain and LangGraph from a very high level technical perspective. I think people will have to know that in teams. What I would love to know from you is, once people like me that are not engineers create something like this, what is the handoff to people like you that are engineers? What are you going to want and need from those people?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I think it's just going to keep evolving. I think this window is going to keep shifting. Kind of back to what I said. I think the role of what a product manager is in many organizations is just going to change in general, Marcelo. Where I think they're going to have to, in many organizations, and I think in the future it will just be mandatory that even like product managers will be technical in the sense that they will know how to use and drive these tools. But as far as what is the handoff to the engineer, that's evolving so quickly, because now, as I said, we're starting to see cloud agents, I think, come in to where the handoff might not even be directly to a developer. The handoff for simple tasks, again, might be the developer is the final approver on a pull request. Now, I know that doesn't sound like the most exciting work, but that can be for a lot of the more menial or straightforward work that is easy for the agents to do, to free up the engineers to, I think, partner and work with product management to figure out what the specs are, think about the overall plan and still how everything. I still think AI is a good ways off from really piecing together good architecture and systems design and really thinking forward. I know it can give the appearance of that now, and I'm not going to predict that it's not going to get there, but I really think that is where the engineering skill is going to be needed, is still figuring out what makes the best sense and how to piece these things together and come up with the specs. Coming up with a spec might sound trivial because it's just language, but I look at the specs as just a new form of programming language. So I've seen non-developers try to write these specs or try to vibe code like you're saying, and they're not as good at it as engineers with more experience. Now, that doesn't mean they can't be, because I really do believe people can pick up and learn these things if they want to put in the effort and not just check their brain out at the door and rely on the AI to do all of it. But engineers are generally going to be a little bit better at this, or product people. Some of the people that I have seen the best at this are product managers too, though, because they come in with the same mindset. I think engineers and product managers in this regard, coming at least from our industry with the agile mindset, are used to breaking down problems, decomposing things. And honestly, I think that is one of the biggest pieces of being an engineer, right? I think that's what differentiates a scientist from an engineer.
Systems thinking, right? Systems
It
architecting.
really is systems thinking, breaking things down, decomposing things, and thinking logically. I have to do this before I do this. I think we easily take that for granted, but that really is a skill. And I think it's a skill that can be developed. And I think for people that are not already engineers and they do fall more into the vibe coding camp, I think that's the good thing to really focus on, is how to logically think about these things. Um, I don't know if I really
You
addressed
did.
your
Yeah, yeah,
original
yeah. No,
question
you
there,
did. You
Marcelo.
did. Now, one thing you mentioned was, and this is where I think people may get nervous, but this is the reality. What I think is what we're moving towards. But you talked about agents in the cloud, right? Where you can agents can do a PR, work on it and submit it. So that brings up the question of AI agents, AI not being just a tool, but now AI being a team member, part of the team. If that's the case, what is the future of for you, a manager of
Sure.
developers? What does that look like?
It's so hard to know. I think that's what I was just kind of describing, though, where I think it is a partnership. But let me maybe step back, and then I'm going to try to answer your question in a roundabout way, Marcelo. So, when we talk about using the agents, I think one of the biggest skills that I would love everybody to take away, and this is something that I've been working with like my developers on and product managers, is a lot of people when they come to ChatGPT or AI, they treat it like almost like a fancy search engine, or as a replacement to Stack Overflow, even, right? For software engineers, for people that are not familiar, right? Stack Overflow is where you go when you don't know how to do some code, it gives you the answer. And now ChatGPT is kind of becoming the replacement for that. You ask the AI, and the AI is great for that. But where I see the real power in AI is when you start to use AI as more than just a search engine, or, hey, do this for me. So even with AI cloud agents, right? Like we can tell the agents, yeah, go ahead and build this code for me and it'll give us something back. Or how should I do this? And it will give us the answer. But if you're already knowledgeable or an expert in the field, and instead you kind of invert how you think about what the AI can do for you and treat the AI more as a facilitator, I've seen that be really magical in its transformation on what it can do with the workforce in general. So let's say that we're working on a spec, Marcelo, just from a product perspective. You can describe your problem to the agent, and the agent will spit out a spec in the perfect form. You can train it. You can say, here's 5 examples of how I want my specs to look. I want to use this BDD format. Here's my problem. We're at A, we want to get to B, and it'll spit it out for you. And it's going to give you the bell curve, average kind of LLM stuff. It's going to be okay. But you as a product manager, or me as a product manager, or a developer, we got so much experience. If we invert how we use the AI and make the AI more into a facilitator or a questioner, where it knows the types of things we want to think about, instead of giving us the answer, we use it to more question us
Hmm.
and help pull things out of us and remind us of standards and push us to brainstorm or evolve. I think that's where the real kind of power of the AI tools comes in. So I know what we were talking about is building a spec and having the agent go off and do some work. And what does that really leave for the developers? But what I think is so much more interesting and going to be so much more powerful is when we start to use these tools also like an employee, where it's almost like a partner, or like a paired programming experience, or an expert coach. It's almost like you have a coach available to you 100% of the time that can help bring the best out of you to get better planning in place. So then when the agents go off and do the work and produce better work, they're producing better work because you've helped produce the context that it needs to deliver something. So I think the place of the developer and the product manager is still going to be getting the context for these AI agents, is still going to be critical. Making sure they have the information, making sure they know what matters and what doesn't matter. I don't see how that goes away anytime soon. Um,
But do you see a future, right? And I agree with you. It's not going to go away anytime, I don't think. But do you see a future where you, as a manager, as a developer manager, right? Do you see a
mhm.
future where you have a team of human developers and of AI developers working? And what does that do from a management perspective, right? Because now you're dealing with, as a team member, AI along with
That's
humans.
I think that will happen. It'll be interesting to see how the workforce adopts that. So I think there's a couple possibilities. I've already, and I'm sure you've seen, like we've seen prototypes of virtual employees where there will be a platform, and you can assign them a badge number, and you can contact them through many multimodal ways of communication, right? And you can treat them like a virtual assistant, and they're working all the time. And we see hints of that right now. Like you can set up Claude to run all night if you got the money for it, right? And it will
Right.
churn through your problems, and it doesn't need sleep. So uh, that's one possible future where we have a workforce of we have 5 regular employees and 3 virtual employees. We give them a name, they have a persona, they
Right.
interact with us. Is that going to be the way we want to work? I don't know. Could that be a fad? Maybe. But what is not a fad is people and AI working together. Whether it's, a dedicated agent that is like an employee on the team, or it's a collaborative tool that each of the developers are working with, or something else. I don't know, Marcelo. I would be curious your thoughts on that, because that's one thing I haven't really. I think in some regards, yes, there will be virtual employees in enterprises. And so it would be weird to say, well, I don't think that would apply to developers. Um, but it's really hard to imagine what that really ends up looking like. And I do see two divergences of how it could possibly go.
Hmm.
Where again, like maybe you do have like, virtual agent Bob on your team, and the team refers to it as an agent, which I think is what you're describing.
Right.
Versus more, is it just a tool? Because we have unlimited compute, and why restrict it to one Bob agent when you can have 1,000 of them, and shard it off into 1,000 different ways and have it all converge back on a solution. So yeah, I don't know, Marcelo.
Yeah, I mean,
It's an interesting
obviously, I don't
question.
know either, and only the
Yeah.
future will tell us the truth, right? But to me, the difference between a tool and a virtual developer is one works with the developer, the human developer, and the other one just works on its own, doing whatever, finishing a PR, doing a little menial task,
Yeah.
whatever. I don't know what the future holds. I can see, though, I can logically see how you as a manager may end up having 5 humans and 2
Maybe.
virtual AIs. I don't know. Perhaps. Who
I,
knows?
I, I think that could happen, but I think, I mean, I'm basing this on the way I work right now and the way I
Yeah.
work right now. I do make my own small agents, and they have personas. I give them personas, and I give them specializations and backgrounds. So, like when I'm recruiting, I have AI agents help me with recruiting, and so I call it Bob. I don't know why I'm stuck on the name Bob, but right,
It's a
Bob,
good
my
name.
recruiting agent. Actually, I call it Rick Rooter. I thought that was so. My recruiter agent, Rick, knows about my job opening and what I'm looking for, and so I do talk to that in Claude right now. So it's not somebody that I hired, but it's somebody that it's. I'm not trying to anthropomorphize it either, because that's a whole other topic. But I mean, I do think of, like, Rick is my helpful AI agent. I remember that. It's easy to remember. And he helps me with what I'm looking for. Same with I have a career coach agent that I created that I can put in my meeting transcripts, and it can help me like look for patterns in how I perform in meetings, or how I've done, or how I've led meetings, or anything like that. I say all that to say I think that people will create their own agents, especially with the ability to create their own agents. So will we hire an agent on the team? I don't know, but I do see, and I'm seeing this already, and I recommend people try this now, is start just creating your own little agents. It can be like low code, just a prompt with some information, and give it some simple memory, and have it help you with different tasks that you do day to day. That's what I think will continue to evolve. And with the new advances coming from like Gemini, they're all releasing like low code build your own agent platforms visually. And it's built into Jira. Glean is a knowledge base AI platform that we're starting to explore. Actually, they all have agent builders in there, so I think people will build their own agents to help them with their job, and I think people that don't will also fall behind. So I think that is a skill for developers also, and product managers, is start building these useful assistants that can help. Developers love doing this. Developers have always loved doing this, right? Like, automate anything you can. If you do
Right.
something 5 times, build a little tool to do it.
Exactly.
And I think this is where agents really just kind of supercharge all of that. Now, I see other types of roles where maybe as a service, you hire some agents, maybe for like customer service or something like that. And maybe it's based on the business model, but I think it's more like that. I think at least for the short term, it's going to be more people handcrafting their own assistants to augment them. At least that's the way I hope it is, because I do see a future. And right now, everything to me points to AI and humans work better together
Collaborating.
than relying on one or the other.
Yeah.
And they really do empower and kind of
Right.
elevate each other if you work collaboratively with it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that because having that collaboration, right? You speed up the process. You can deliver really good stuff, but you're delivering at a much faster speed now. So what does that
Mhm.
do to sprint planning? What does that do to I have this feature and it's going to take me 2 months to implement? What is it going to take you today now to implement because you have that, right?
And yeah, it's a crazy time, Marcelo. And I'll give an example too. Recently, I was planning out a large effort to do some refactor of some large web applications that have been around for a while, and the planning was leaning me towards potentially 3 to 6 months. This was going to take multiple people, multiple teams, a lot of refactor. Just modernization of websites. The technology changes so fast, and when we started doing it and just seeing how good the AI was at these types of tasks, it blew those estimates out of the water, and it was done in
Right.
days, not 2 quarters. And that's when it really hit me. Just how transformative. I mean, I saw it coming before, but like it's just with that. So it really makes planning interesting. So if you're an agile purist like me, and you kind of go with the story point methodology,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think how we point things changes. We just keep, I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's just velocity. But what's going to be interesting is when you run into a story that you're pointing and you're looking at it, and is this something we can use AI on, or is this not something we can use AI on? I think those are the questions that you have to ask, and it's going to affect the pointing. And then how do you do that? If something would be no AI, very complex, but with AI, it's going to be like it goes from an 8 to a 1. Well, I guess you point it as a 1, but I don't know. It's interesting, right? I don't think you just kind of throw it out, but I think just the velocity is going to slide as teams. Here's another thing: is teams also need to kind of like learn to embrace. I've seen an interesting adoption curve in your teams. Is you got to empower your engineers to really play with these tools and probably take the time to try and fail to really learn how to use the vibe coding techniques well, to then see an increase in velocity. So going back a little bit, Marcelo, and I know this is all over the place,
It's
I have
perfect.
seen a lot of companies, try and fail with AI where they just drop the tools on their team and say, have at it. And I know this because CEOs reach out to me and talk to me about this. They're like, we're giving this to our developers. They've had Cursor for 6 months, but they're still just treating it like an autocomplete. What's going on? They all say they can do it better. And then there's teams like mine where they fully embrace it. And I think that comes from not everybody on a team that just has these tools dropped in their lap is going to have the time to really experiment with these and do like what you and I have done, to really go through the vibe coding process and learn what works. I think I would say this for anybody: if you have a team of engineers and you want them to embrace these tools and get better with them, you have to give them the chance to try and fail. So one thing I did with my team is we did an AI sprint where we, for 2 weeks, we took what we would normally do, what normally one developer could do in 3 days. That was their goal for the whole 2 weeks, Marcelo. And everybody had a task assigned to them for 2 weeks. Relative complexity, like I said, it was 2 to 4 days. And what I had everybody do is what I did to develop the BMAD method, kind of bringing it back to that. I realized by me having to go through that whole process, it's valuable for the team. So everybody, they pick up the story, they get it done, they run into the same things like, oh, this does stupid things here, but if I give it this context, it does it right. Or if we have this right documentation in place, it does it right. That was a transformative experience, and I think everybody on my team would give the same message, that by going through that, forcing them and doing almost like those repetitions themselves of just, the only goal was by the end of the sprint, get the AI agent to actually build this whole story from beginning to end. What does it take? I think if everybody did that with their engineers and kind of let them ingrain and kind of learn how to use these tools and the agents properly that way, you can tell people use context engineering. You can tell people, give it all this information and, manage your context and watch for the overflow and all this. But by actually having people do it and kind of learn it on their own, it's powerful and transformative. So that's kind of, something that I would like really suggest, and that I've seen, kind of really transform developers that
Yeah.
are trying to like learn how to grapple and use these tools. And the net effect is huge, where, like I said, I'm seeing companies where they just can't get their engineers, the engineers believe, oh, it's just a fad, it's just vibe coding, it's not going to work for us, versus engineers that really pick it up and embrace it in the day to day. I think it is just kind of like giving everybody the opportunity to try and maybe fail, and just, see what works and doesn't work, and maybe take off the time constraints for a week or two of, we have to deliver, and help people ingrain and learn how to use these tools. It will really elevate their ability to use them. And the interesting thing, Marcelo, is when people doing that, it's transformative, not only in them using the tools, but then they start looking at everything of like, oh, we were manually doing error triage before. Why don't we set up an agent that can do that? Or why don't we set up an agent that can help us over here? Like, it's just transformative in how people start to think once they start ingraining just exactly what these AI tools can do, and realizing that they're more than just like a Google or a,
Like a completion, like, yeah,
or
like
a completion, or
IntelliSense,
like,
yeah.
give me the answer of how to complete this
Right.
function. So yeah, let me just pause there, because that was a big tangent.
Believe it or not, it's been 45 minutes. We're getting close to the end here, and we could talk literally for 3 more hours. So hopefully I can get you back. I know you're a busy guy, maybe late December next year. I'd love to have you back and continue. But I do want to cover two things before we end it.
For sure.
One is for engineers. I'm talking to you as a manager of engineers. What will you expect engineers to know beyond their framework, like whatever Next.js, whatever you need
Yeah.
them to know? What will you expect? Because I heard from many engineers that they're now being tested on how to use Cursor, how to use Cloud Code. They're not asked to code from scratch. They're asked to code using these tools. So what do
It's
you
interesting.
think, what will you want them to know in the future, or you think other managers will want them to know in the future?
I strongly believe that all engineers do need to start embracing these tools, and this is going to become part of the job and part of the new normal. Um, I'm sure there's niche, software coding environments where it won't apply, but if you're going to be in this career for the next, 5, 10, 15 years, this is just something that you have to take on now. And I would say start trying to integrate it in your work. Now, not every workplace even allows these tools yet, but I think that's going to change. But I would say even practice with them on your own and start learning them, and learning what works and what doesn't work. But understanding the context window and how to use these tools, I would say don't learn the specifics of a tool, because they all kind of are homogenizing and they're all going to, converge at the same point, it seems. But start to understand the concepts and what works and how to work with the AI as a partner. I would say that's the most important thing. If you can treat it more than a chat GPT or an answer machine, and really learn how to pair with
Right.
it and get the best out of you, it's going to give you a leg up over everybody else and make your job easier at the end of the day, I think. So
And
why fight it?
and I love that you said have the AI challenge you, question you, because that's the whole power of the AI is not just to do the stuff for you, right? But also to have you think in a different way, right? One thing
Yes.
I've in that I've discovered on context engineering, instead of being so specific, I like more outcome based context engineering. So describing to the AI, I want this outcome, but you tell me how to go about it. You ask me questions about this outcome, as opposed to ask me these five
Yes.
questions. It's more, this is the outcome I want. How do I get there? Because that's
Yes,
where I
keeping
think
it
the power
open-ended.
of it.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's great keeping it open-ended, giving it the goal, and then having it, like, try to guide you towards that goal is so powerful, and, like, I know this sounds silly, but it's a magical experience, but when it
It
happens
is.
and you, like, really treat this AI like a facilitator, it can bring out more than you even know you had in you. In the BMAD method, there's a brainstorming agent that you can use, and it's kind of the same thing. There's no goal in mind. Its only goal is to work with you to pull information out of you and not give you the answer, and help guide you through different well-known brainstorming tasks. And it scares me sometimes what I have come up with just by the AI questioning me in a way that I just don't do on my own. And so, this applies to anything, Marcelo, right? Whether it be like you're coding, or as a PM, you're coming up with the new product, or you could be like the CTO of a company, and you're looking long out for your business, and having it kind of questioning you about your business and where the roadmap is going.
Right.
Like it's so powerful, and it's a great tool. So embrace that. Don't learn the specifics of Cursor. These tools are going to come and go, and they're going to change, right?
It's going to
But learn
change.
learn the
Yeah.
concepts, and learn, because it applies to all of them one way or the other.
Agreed. 100%. So to close it up, for those engineers that are just don't want to take on AI, don't care for it, what do you tell them?
I mean, it's kind of a tough love. I don't see it going any other way, Marcelo. And I have had this conversation, with a few people, and it's, I mean, I don't know. This would be equivalent to not, wanting to keep up with, like, the internet when the
The
internet
internet,
came out, right?
yeah.
It's like, and I know,
Right.
look, this it's not an easy conversation, right? Like, again, not everything is perfect with this, and who
No,
knows what this means for society in the future. And there's so many ethical, moral, so many ways you could take it. But as far as the job, I mean, this is the job, and I think this is the way it's going to evolve. And companies that are not there now, they will be, or I think they'll fall behind. And I think, unfortunately, the same will happen with most engineers. Nothing is 100%, but I think for most people, it's the way of the future. And if you look at universities will transform. They're still a little bit behind, but they'll get to the point where people coming out with a computer science degree or an engineering degree, whatever that means in the future, it's not going to be how you and I went to school, right? They're going to be
right,
learning these things from the ground up. Interviews are going to involve using AI and being, I think you even mentioned it earlier, right? Like being assessed on, are you able to use the AI to solve a challenging problem? And how do you use the AI? And do you use it smartly? Like, jobs will be, well, I know for a fact jobs are already assessing on this quality right now, and it's so early on. So it's only going to continue. I cannot see it stopping. So if somebody's opposed to it, I mean, it's kind of a tough love. Like, I'm sorry, but if you want to be in this career, unless you're at the end of your career like I am, and you kind of don't care, right? If you're going to try to stick with this another 5, 10, 15 years, you got to start to embrace it to really get ahead, and keep a job and keep competitive, right? So
yeah. And that's really the tech industry, right? If you're in this business, pretty much it's always been like that. The internet,
it really has.
mobile, I mean, it doesn't matter.
I
It's
mean, it feels
always,
different in that it's so fast
it's so
paced now
fast.
and
Yeah.
changing, but
It's so
it's
fast and
always
also
been the
so
way it is.
magical too. And magical, I don't mean it in the wonderful word. Magical in the sense that it does stuff that wasn't done before, right? It's creating
It
stuff
does.
that, yeah. And
I really
and
do
so
believe
that
it
makes
makes
it
it
scary too.
It makes us better. I would say like one more thing, and I know we're almost out of time, Marcel. I want to say thank you too for being here, and I'll get a podcast going, and I hope you'll also come on my channel.
Oh, I'd
But
love
it'll be
to. I
fascinating.
enjoyed having a conversation with you.
It would be fascinating a year from now, though, if, like you said, if we did this, because I don't even know. Like,
Oh,
it's
this
just
will be
so.
old. It'll be like, oh, this makes no sense
It's
now. Yep.
amazing what has happened since I picked up Cursor in, like I said, I think it was November of last year. So I can't even imagine where things will be a year from now. But we've tried to hit on some of those things, and it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see.
No, it was a real pleasure having you here, Brian. Thank you so much. I want to give you a quick chance. People want to get hold of you. All the links are on the landing page of this podcast, so people can go get them there. But go ahead and if they want to get a hold of you, want to get the BMAT method, go ahead and tell them.
Yeah, well, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel BMAD Code. In the description or in the links that Marcelo will share, he will share a link to the Discord community. I'll give him that link, and also the GitHub. Check out the BMAD method on GitHub. Try it out. It's not only for software developers; it's for anybody that wants to use AI kind of as a thought process. But yeah, just subscribe to the channel, and
It's a great
more
channel.
videos will be coming
Definitely
out soon.
subscribe to it. I
Thanks so much,
watch it.
Marcelo.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks,
yeah.
Marcelo. That's awesome to hear, and I enjoy your content also. And you got a great community. I have some friends down in LA that have attended a couple
Yeah,
of
he
your
showed up on the
meetups.
meetup.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
Definitely.
Juan said it was great. So shout out to
Yeah,
Juan there that went to
you've
the
got to
meetup.
come down. I know you're not in LA, but one day when you're in
No,
LA,
if
you
I
got
can
to
make it
show
down
out.
there, I definitely
I'd
definitely
love
look
to have
forward
you
and
there.
and
Yeah,
right back at you if you're in Chicago. Definitely let me know,
definitely.
Marcelo.
All right, Brian. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, man.
No, this was great. This was so enjoyable. Thank you so much. Take care.
And thanks to the rest of you. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I had a lot of fun. And, it's a different world. It's changing rapidly, and it could be exciting. I mean, it definitely is exciting, but it could also be scary. So I totally understand. Anyway, as always, if you want to get a hold of me, just email me, Marcelo at icodewith.ai. I'd love to hear from you. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click that bell icon to get notified when a new episode is out. And if you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button. If you didn't, send me an email and tell me why. So we'll see you on the next episode. Cheers, everybody.